everyone, and welcome to BookTrib's 15 Minutes with, a Merrill Moss Media production. Today we are thrilled to welcome back USA Today bestselling author Patricia Davids. Patricia is known for her Amish inspirational fiction, For Love Inspired. This month, Patricia is releasing their Pretend Amish Courtship, and we have it right here. Beautiful cover. I love the horsey in the background, as I've already mentioned to you. So thank you so much for joining us, Pat. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Start off by telling us a little bit about their Pretend Amish Courtship and who is it that's pretending in this story?
Well, it's about a young Amish couple. They grew up on neighboring farms, and their mothers were dear friends, and their mothers always had this idea that someday their children would make a match of it. Of course, as soon as you say that to your kids, then they don't want anything to do with that. But they're both at the outer end of their rumspring at that time when Amish teenagers can see the outside world a little before joining the church, and their parents are pressuring them to make that decision and settle down. And they each have something that they want to accomplish during the summer. And in order to get their parents off their back, they decide that they're going to pretend to be courting each other, which makes both their mothers very happy, and no one is trying to interfere with what they do then. So that's kind of the whole thing. They're being a little sneaky is actually what they're doing.
Got it. So this is the Bachelor series, the Amish Bachelors, and this is the fourth in the series. That's right?
That's right.
So did you know when you kind of started this series, because you also have the Bride series, did you know when you started this one kind of where the future of the series would go, or some of the storylines you wanted to cover, or has this just kind of evolved after you wrote the first one, which was an Amish harvest?
Right. It just evolved with each book. I knew I wanted to write about all of the brothers in the family. There are actually 5 brothers, and okay. The one brother met his match in the last book of the Amish Bride series, and so that's how I tied the two series together. So one of the brothers was already taken before I started the Amish Bachelors series. So this is the 4th brother. And then I realized that I had a 6-book contract, so I had to come up with 2 cousins.
That's great.
7 characters.
There's always extended family, right?
That's right. Especially if you're Amish.
Yeah, exactly. So are they in any way standalones, or are they written as if they must be read in succession?
They are absolutely standalone books.
Oh, great.
You mention other characters from previous books, but no, you don't have to understand what's going on in the family to enjoy their Pretend Amish Courtship. It's a standalone book.
Perfect. Okay. Can you give us a little idea of your background and where you pull the ideas for each storyline from, or where your inspiration comes from?
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I am a farmer's daughter, and I went to college, became a nurse, met a sailor, left Kansas, went to the East Coast, lived in Connecticut for a while.
Ah.
Then my sailor husband decided he wasn't seeing enough of me and got out of the service, and we came back to Kansas. He was an x-ray technician, and I was an RN, so we worked for many years in the hospital, same hospital together. And people used to say, I didn't know you were married to him. You never had lunch together. I said, I see him for breakfast and supper. I can see somebody else for lunch. But some of my ideas have come from people I've met through the years, interesting characters. But a lot of it comes from my childhood on the farm. I was very much into horses when I was a young girl, as you mentioned, the horse on the front.
Yes.
And this is a very interesting breed. The whole idea for this book came up while I was doing online research, and I happened to click on a YouTube video of Amish women riding Haflinger horses in a drill team.
Oh.
Yes, that was my expression, exactly. Oh.
Interesting.
that seems very not plain to me to ride in front of several thousand people
Sure.
on these horses. And so I emailed the person who had put up the video, and it was her stable. And there were 6 Amish women and 2 that were not, but dressed like Amish women in order to make the, look the same. And I said, but they're riding to music. The Amish don't, they only sing. They don't use instrumentals. And she said none of the girls were baptized yet. And so they're still free to do that type of thing. But once they become baptized, they won't be able to participate in that type of activity. And most of them will have to give up horseback riding unless their individual bishop says that this is an plain enough activity for a family.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Where did your interest in the Amish culture and community come in, and how did you decide that was the fiction you wanted to write?
That's entirely the fault of my editor.
Oh, really?
Entirely the fault of my editor. She emailed me and she said, we've noticed how very popular Amish fiction has become, and we took a look at our authors, and we didn't have any in Pennsylvania, so Pat, we thought of you. And I thought, why? Because Kansas is so close to Pennsylvania? Because we're just overrun with Amish out here?
Oh, my
There's
goodness.
2 Amish communities in Kansas,
Sure.
maybe 3 now. But so I said, I don't know anything about them. Let me do some research, and I'll get back to you. And then, so I did some research. I found they're a very, very unique and interesting culture. And there's not, the one thing you have to know about the Amish is that there's no one way for the Amish.
Oh.
This church group says it's okay to have electricity in your businesses. This one says no. This one says you can use cell phones or solar power. This one says no, you can't. So it's entirely the decision made amongst the church members, which is usually only about 50 adults in a church.
So community-driven rules, essentially.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you find that gives you a little more freedom in your writing when you're switching storylines?
Yes, absolutely. It gives me more freedom if I make certain to point that out, that this is something that this community allows and another community might not allow.
Sure.
Because overall, really, the Amish are pretty boring people. So it's kind of hard to come up with some interesting storylines for people who just work all the time. Yeah.
Did your research ever bring you to any kind of Amish community where you were allowed to go in and insert yourself a little or speak to any of them, or was that not allowed?
Sure. Oh, yes. I've been to several Amish communities. There is a community in Yoder, Kansas, and in the spring they have what's called a parade of quilts, in which all these little businesses that are Amish or not Amish, they display hundreds of quilts from around the country that are for sale. And you take a tour of all these little businesses and visit with the people who work there in the furniture factory or in the hardware store, which still sells lamps, the kerosene lanterns.
Sure.
You just don't find that very much. So, yes, and then I've been to Arthur, Illinois, which is another really interesting Amish community.
Did you find it was welcoming? Were they wary? They weren't too sure what you were asking questions about, or?
I have not met anyone who was reluctant to talk to me. I try to be very respectful. I try to dress not provocatively, but dress simple, and try to be sensitive. The Amish don't read what I write.
Okay.
They have their own publishing company. They have their own magazine, their own newspaper, and some of the young women may, but I try to be. Someone asked me once if I was, making a living off their backs, and I said, well, no more than someone who writes about cowboys,
sure,
or who writes about doctors.
Right.
It's fiction.
Absolutely.
I was trying not to take advantage of them.
Interesting. Okay. So let's talk about your Bride series a little bit. It's Brides of Amish Country, and
Yes.
you've got about 15 titles in that series from what I could discover. And but it's still growing, right? You're continuing to write for them?
No, I have finished that unless someone makes me write another one.
That editor, she's gonna get you
Yeah,
in trouble.
yeah, you got to be a little limit with them. I think there were actually 13 books and one novella in that
Okay.
series. It started out as a 3-book series, and then it just continued to grow and grow and grow. And I kept inventing characters who needed their own story. So
Sure.
then finally I had to invent a character for somewhere else. So I came up with the brothers.
So The Bachelors is the spinoff of The Brides.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Well, you've also written a military series in the past, and some
Yes.
other suspense series. Do you ever think maybe you'll go back to any of those, or start something else besides the Amish, or are you just kind of continuing with that Bride series right now?
Um,
The Bachelor series. I'm sorry.
yeah. Now the Bachelor series has one more book in it for me to finish,
Okay.
and
You
then
mentioned that.
um, I'm off to a new. Some I
A
have to
new
think of a new
adventure.
series. Yes, a new adventure, a new series. I, as a nurse, I like medical
Mm,
stories, and so my very first book was a spin-off from my own career as a neonatal intensive care nurse,
right.
and the the military series was about reenactors. The military's
Oh.
reenacting. They ride horses and perform
Hmm.
cavalry maneuvers from the 1880s
Wow.
um, for the public. And so horses and farming and cowboys. I have cowboys in my family. Real, honest to God, spurs on their boots cowboys. So
Wonderful. That's so interesting.
yeah, so it's, besides the only time that my career has gotten in the way of a story was they asked me once to write a book about a pediatric cardiac surgeon.
Okay.
And I said, those people have no sense of humor. I know several of them, and I cannot make a romance hero out of them. And
Oh,
they said,
interesting.
this is okay, it'll be the heroine. I said, oh, good. So I have to say that was probably the biggest leap in fiction I've ever done.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So for you, you're prepping for 2018 books at this point, or you're finishing out the Amish Bachelor series. What are you working on right now?
I well, this is I was just offered an 8-book contract
Wonderful. Congratulations.
yeah, from Love Inspired, and also I have a novella that will be out next Christmas
Okay.
from Kensington.
Perfect.
So yeah, so I'm broadening out a little bit. Uh, I,
Ideas.
yes, ideas.
Of
The the thing about branching out is I have to be careful not to leave my readers behind,
course.
because readers who read Amish fiction are voracious readers, and
Dedicated.
they love that genre.
Yeah.
They don't often read outside of it. And so if I'm going to move away from Amish fiction, I have to find a way to combine
Incorporate.
a contemporary story with an Amish story in order to show people that I can write outside of the Amish.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, one thing, I guess the last thing I'm wondering about before we go, because our time is almost up, what about you in terms of your reading? Of course, we know your writing and your genre, but do you read within your genre? Are you way away from your genre? What's your reading habits like?
Way away from my genre. I don't read in my genre except for research.
Okay.
And the vast majority of that is online. And so, as far as what do I read, it's very eclectic. It's what happens to be I'm staying with my father on the farm. My dad's
Yeah.
87 and not in great health, and my mother has stacks and stacks of paperbacks. Harlequin, the old
The old
Harlequins that are
Harley. Yeah.
yellow and they're about to fall apart because I
Right.
never threw anything away. And so I have delved into some of those, and that is good for a laugh. If you want
Good.
if you want to read some of the 1960s, the 70s Harlequins, that's good for a laugh.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure the genre's changed so much. What's
Yes,
acceptable has
parables
changed
are
so much.
so much different now.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Patricia, so
Sure.
much. This was so much fun. Their Pretend Amish Courtship on sale this month. Um, grab it, download it. You can get it in paperback, however you would like to. Thank you so much. This was a great time, and we'll meet up again soon about that new idea that you're working
Yes, yes.
on.
Hopefully. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All
You're
right.
so welcome. Have a great night, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Bye
Bye.
bye.